When I first had the idea to start this channel, this was one of the first videos that I wanted to make. I wanted to go through the full Bristol City squad as it stands right now ahead of the 25-26 season. Go through the players I want to keep, go through the players I don't really care about either way, the players I'd want to loan out, and the players I want to sell. Okay, so I've done this in a tier list. It's on a website called tiermaker.com. I've put all the images of the players and put this list together myself. If you want to do this on your own and send me results or whatever on Twitter, you can do that. I'll leave a link in the description below. My Twitter is @RobinNestBCFC. So we've got a full list. You can't see behind me, but it's a full list of all of the players in the Bristol City squad. We've obviously had the retained list, so players that have been let go as free agents are not on this list. We've got all the players here, and then 4 categories. So players I want to keep, players I don't really mind either way about, players I'd loan out, and players I want to sell. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time giving my opinions about each of the players individually, basically. So first up then, it looks like we've got Rob Atkinson. Now, obviously spent, well, since January on loan at Portsmouth. Questionable decision, I think that was, at the time to loan him out to Portsmouth. I guess a loan was probably the best move because he needed minutes, obviously, after his injuries. But you know, we needed him in that second leg against Sheffield United, but that's obviously the final game of the season. So whether the decision to loan him out was good or not, I think is less questionable than whether the decision to buy a new centre-back during January was, I'd say. I think we needed to buy a new centre-back, questionable as to whether we needed to loan Atkinson out. Quite honestly, though, I like Rob Atkinson as a player, but I've got to say, I just don't think he starts for us. And well, I think we could buy someone that's probably better than him. So, in the nicest way possible, I don't really mind what we do with Rob Atkinson. Next up, we got Zach Viner. Now, I'm going to put him in as a keep. Do I think Zach Viner is good enough to start week in, week out for a Bristol City team that should be promoted to the Premier League? No, I'll be honest. I think he's decent enough on the ball to be a good championship defender, but I think his concentration lacks at times. His communication with Max O'Leary lacks at times, and I think that's responsible for a few goals that we've conceded this season. And I don't think he's physically dominant enough to realistically challenge against some of the bigger strikers in the Championship. It was proven against Preston, right? When he deals with a big striker, he just sits off them, gives them 3 or 4 yards of space, and just lets them run at him. We saw that again against Sunderland, actually. I can't remember. Was it Mayenda, the Sunderland striker that scored against us? Ran the whole length of the pitch, basically. And Viner just sort of stood 3 or 4 yards off him the entire time. Didn't really get tight or put a challenge in, and it led to Mayenda scoring. So, got no bad words really to say against Zach Viner. It's not like he doesn't try. I just don't think he's quite good enough to get us into the Premier League. We got Josh Stokes. This season, I would probably keep him. I think, you know, with George Earthy going back to West Ham, Josh Stokes coming back from Cambridge, I think he essentially will replace George Earthy in the role that George Earthy used or played in our squad. All the signs look good as for him as a player. When he joined us from Aldershot, it was, wasn't it? All of the fans said that we're getting an exceptional, like, young talent from them. And, well, he played pretty well at Cambridge, right? I'm excited to see what he can do for us next season. I think he's probably too good to be loaned out at this stage. Yeah, I'm quite excited to see what happens with him. And I think he'll get good enough minutes. I essentially think he's just going to directly replace George Earthy in the team. So that should mean good minutes, and hopefully he can make an impact for us. I'll put Hayden Roberts in the don't mind section. Now, I will never forget the last minute winner that he scored for us, right? That is genuinely probably my best memory following Bristol City. I've not had a season ticket at Bristol City for that long. I've supported them, well, since I was a child, but I've only moved to Bristol in the last sort of 3 or 4 years to actually get a season ticket. So yeah, I mean, that is the best memory I have of being a Bristol City fan, right? I wasn't in attendance for the Man United Corey Smith goal. And to be honest, that was kind of a cup run, whereas, you know, us being promoted to the Premier League, I think, would have been better than us winning the cup, if that makes sense. So anyway, I just think that's the best moment I can remember as a Bristol City fan, basically. However, as a player, he's all right. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's decent. But I don't think he's of the level to get us to promotion. And to be honest, I don't really mind what we do with him. We could keep him and I'll be indifferent. We could sell him and I'd be indifferent. We could loan him out and I'd be... Well, I don't see the need to loan him out because I think he's got enough experience and probably qualifies for enough minutes. Ultimately, just don't really mind what we do with him. Let me know in the comments what you think of that opinion. I'll do Jason Knight next. obviously, I mean, he's our best player, right? Undoubtedly our best player. I read a stat from FBref the other day that Jason Knight, amongst Europe's top 5 leagues, is the number 1 player for ball recovery, right? That's probably backed up by the fact that he's played every single minute in a 46-game championship season, but obviously backed up by the fact that he's a fantastic player as well. So the most ball recoveries in Europe's top 5 leagues belongs to Jason Knight. He's just a phenomenal player, isn't he? And I'm really pleased to see this season he was played much deeper as well. One of the issues we saw when Manning first came into the job was Jason Knight was played in a more advanced position and it just didn't work for him. He is not a player that is like a number 10 and can make that final pass or final shot or whatever. He's definitely got goals in him, particularly, of course, from set pieces. When you watch his movement as well in set pieces, it's just unbelievable. He scored, 3 or 4 goals this season. I think he's, 5'9", 5'10". So he's not one of our bigger players, but he's still really dangerous from set pieces. I just hope we keep him, basically. I mean, what would his price tag be if we sell him? I mean, it's quite obvious. I think some Premier League clubs are going to be putting in offers. I don't think he leaves us for another Championship team. You know, Norwich City fans suggesting they might be able to get him. I don't think that's going to be the case, to be honest. I think Jason Knight will only leave us for a Premier League team that's just been relegated, so an Ipswich, a Southampton or a Leicester, or a genuine Premier League team. I don't see another way that he leaves us, really. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you think Jason Knight is worth. Ross McCrory up next. Got to keep him. Little story about Ross McCrory I've got for you, actually. So I'm a swimmer, and during the summer we were training on a Saturday morning, and after training we would go into a cafe on White Ladies Road, for Ross's sake. I won't say what cafe it is, but we go in a cafe on White Ladies Road. And every morning for 3 or 4 weeks, when the season started, Ross was going in there on his own and just having a breakfast while the rest of his squad were out playing games, etc. And obviously when he joined us, he had that horrific injury and I think it was a bone infection or something. It was horrendous. And I have so much respect for Ross McCrory and the hardships that he suffered at our football club, which have hopefully been rewarded by the fact that he was, our star player for the final 3 or 4 games of the season, right? Scoring the important goals that got us into the playoffs. I mean, at times scoring braces in games. We've got to keep him, in my opinion. And one of the things I like about Ross McCrory, which I don't think he's a unique player in our team. I don't think the rest of the players that can play at fullback or wingback have this in their locker, where he's really good going forwards. And we don't really have, other than Ross McCrory, a fullback that you would back from an attacking perspective. I think Pring and Tanner are solid defensively, but they lack the confidence when they go forwards. Most of the time, then, when they receive the ball, they look for a pass backwards. They don't try to either make a forward pass or take the ball and run with it themselves, which is what Ross McCrory does, to his credit. Definitely be keeping him. And Max O'Leary, I'd probably keep him, but that's not saying that I think he should be our starting goalkeeper next season, right? I think we need a new goalkeeper at Bristol City. I'll make another video on top of this one where I talk about my top transfer targets for Bristol City this summer. And I think a goalkeeper should almost be top of that list, really. I like Max O'Leary, but I just don't think he's good. Again, I just don't think he's good enough to start for a Bristol City team that could get into the Premier League and get promotion. If we are to achieve the playoffs again this season, I think there are 2 players that probably aren't good enough for our starting 11 that started regularly last season. One being Zach Viner, who we've just spoken about, and another one being Max. I think he's a decent shot stopper, but he makes too many mistakes with his feet. I don't think he commands his box well enough. And I sit in the south stand, and you can tell he doesn't really communicate very well with his defenders. And it's a problem that the trio of Dickey, Viner, and O'Leary have, is they're not vocal enough with one another, and it causes quite a lot of mistakes, I've found. Yeah. I don't think he's good enough to get us into the Premier League, but also if he was happy to sit on our bench, I think he'd be a fine backup goalkeeper. So with that in mind, I'd keep him, but I'd definitely look to replace him. Next up, we've got Carrie Hornick, haven't we? I mean, if we could possibly sell him, if a club wants him, I think he's got to go, right? Barely featured at all for Bristol City last season. You know, total respect for him as a player. I really like Carrie Hornick. Seems like a decent bloke, but he's just, I don't think, fit to play in our squad really anymore by the looks of it. Liam Manning obviously didn't rate him, played him for limited minutes, but obviously he's become a bit of a cult hero amongst Bristol City fans, right? And when we did see him play under Pearson, he obviously wasn't for a lack of effort, right? He pressed and harried like an absolute madman at times, but he just he's not going to put enough goals in the back of the net, is he, to stay at Bristol City? So I'd probably look to offload. Cornick. Mayulu, well, he started obviously really strong for Bristol City. I thought when he first signed and we first got to see him at Ashton Gate scoring both of those goals that he did off the bench, I was like, holy moly, we've got a phenomenal striker on our ranks here. And then it just completely fell apart. And in addition to that, his effort levels in games was really poor as well. He came off the bench on a couple of occasions, if I remember rightly, with like 20, 30 minutes to go. And you think as a professional athlete, right, you got 20, 30 minutes to make an impact on a game. You're just going to leave it all out there, right? You're going to empty the tank, sprint at defenders, press the goalkeeper at every opportunity. He just didn't do that. And he just, well, was completely bereft of confidence from a finishing perspective, wasn't he, during the end of his tenure last year. To be honest, I'd see how he got on during pre-season, but quite ultimately, I'd just look to loan him out again. I don't think he's good enough to start for us. I'd put him behind Sinclair and Nahki Wells in the starting sort of pecking order. Yeah, I'd look to get rid of Mayulu. And to be honest, if it were me and I was deciding transfers, I'd probably look to get another number 9 into the squad. Whether budget allows that or not, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I'd look to loan out Mayulu. I'd probably do the same with Sam Bell as well. I do feel a little bit sorry for Sam Bell, right? That hamstring injury he got was as a result, I think, of being overused. You pick up hamstring. I think he completely tore his hamstring. I don't know if it needed surgery or not, but you do your hamstring by overusing it. And I think it suggests that he was run into the ground during, well, previous to his injury. And he came back from his injury, just looked completely devoid of confidence, was being played in the incorrect position. I mean, he's supposedly a centre forward, but I don't think I've seen him play a single minute at centre forward under Liam Manning, which I do feel a little bit sorry for him as a result. It certainly looks like he's a hard-working lad, professional attitude, all of those things. But I just don't think he's good enough to play for Bristol City at the moment. And personally, I think I'd loan him out. I think a League One loan, that sort of level, give him some confidence, give him some good minutes, give him a chance to really score some goals for a decent team. Yeah, I'd loan Sam Bell out, I think. Sinclair Armstrong, well, I'd probably keep him. You know, a lot of fans have been frustrated by him. But there are a couple of positive things I would say about Sinclair Armstrong. The main positive is just how good he is physically. And I think it's something we lack across a squad as Bristol City, is players with absolute raw like power and pace. When you think about our team, who are the two most like athletic players in our squad, right? Jason Knight for like his work rate and his fitness for sure. I'd probably put Ross McCrory up there as well. Dickey, he's our biggest player, but I don't think he's particularly physically like really strong and doesn't really have that much pace. I think it's Sinclair Armstrong and Cam Pring basically who are the two most sort of physical, athletic players in our squad. And I haven't seen a single Championship centre-back have one over on Sinclair Armstrong fairly. He's been on the receiving end of so many fouls as Armstrong in this season, and they just weren't given. The only way defenders could get one over him is by fouling him, basically. I haven't seen a single defender actually pocket him. The problem is, of course, that he can get past defenders, make runs in behind, etc., but he just can't finish. He really needs to work on his composure in front of goal and his finishing. So, and also, based on the lack of centre forwards that we have at the moment, I don't think you can get away with loaning him out because, well, we don't have enough forwards left behind if we do that. And well, I don't think we can sell him because I think there's still a bit of potential there for me. I think he needs one more season to really see how he gets on. So, for me, I'd probably keep Sinclair Armstrong and he'd be second in my current starting striker pecking order. I mean, Rob Dickey has to stay, right? He's probably our best, most accomplished centre-back. He's good on the ball, pretty good from a defensive point of view, I would say. Obviously, a threat from the air. I want to see him shoot more from outside the box as well because he's got an absolute laser on him with his right foot from outside the box. One thing I would say that does let Dickey down, and it really showed in the final game against Preston, I think, and it's similar with Viner as well. He might be tall. I think he's, 6'3", 6'4", but he's not all that athletic. I don't think he's massively strong. I think he just relies on his sheer size to beat forwards rather than actual physical strength. And he's really slow as well. So once a player gets in behind him, as we saw, of course, in the playoff final first leg, you know, he's done really because he doesn't have the pace to recover. And also that playoff semi-final first leg and the mistake he made to give away the penalty. By the way, I think we lost that because of Rob Dickey's rash challenge. You know, regardless of what you say about whether it was a foul or not, I just don't think Dickey needed to make the challenge. He should have let the player go through on goal. It was Kiefer Moore, wasn't it? Let Kiefer Moore go through on goal. Have a one-on-one against O'Leary, who I've obviously said I'd probably push O'Leary back to my second choice goalkeeper, but I'd back him to save that one-on-one versus Kiefer Moore. And we bought him from QPR when he had a poor season, low on confidence, etc. I think Dickey is a bit of an up and down mentally player. And also, at times this season, I think he was lucky not to get sent off. I can't remember the specific games, but there were a couple of occasions towards our run into the playoffs where the referee could have easily have given him a red card and gave him a yellow. I can't remember who it was against. Someone can remind me in the comments. I think we were quite lucky to not have him suspended leading into the playoffs, to be honest. I'd definitely keep him, though. He's our best defender. I still think we need to invest in that position, though. But yeah, like I said, I think Rob Dickey's probably our best centre-back, alongside someone else who we'll get onto. Joe Williams, that might be an unpopular decision. I just worry about his injury record. I love him. And I think one thing that he adds that only really 2 players do in this Bristol City squad, I think Ross McCrory adds it and I think Joe Williams adds it, is a real bit of needle. Someone who really isn't afraid to get in like a physical scrap, which I think is really important when you're playing the top championship sides. The rest of our team, and it's a problem I think we have across the Bristol City squad, is that we're a little bit too nice. We don't really, I don't know, we're not capable of being nasty, I don't think. But there are 2 players in our squad that are. That's obviously Williams and McCrory. You always see McCrory having like a one-on-one battle with the opposing winger, you know, putting challenges in the air. I really like how nasty he can be, and it's the same for Joe Williams. But his injury record is something that really worries me. Let me know in the comments what you do with Williams. I really like him as a player. I think it's whether you would take the injury record for what he adds to the team or whether you think it's worth offloading him in sort of cashing in, really. I would favour on the side of cashing in and then look to buy another player that offers the same sort of attributes that he does in return, if that makes sense. But I absolutely love Joe Williams. It'd be a real shame to see him go, but I think it's probably for the best that he does, just given his injury record. Got Scott Twine up next. I think I would probably keep Twine. I mean, I think statistically, is he not the number 1 free kick taker in world football right now? I think he's got a better free kick conversion record than Messi. But when he's in open play, I'm still not all that impressed by him. Other than his like dead ball shooting and shooting from range, he hasn't, forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn and you disagree, but I don't think he's offered all that much to our team from open play this season. You know, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, Liam Manning brought him in from previous clubs, really liked him as a player. Totally understand why. But one thing that annoyed me about Manning is, and it probably put Twine at a disadvantage as well, is Twine is a number 10, right? Classic number 10 in my mind. But with the system that Manning was playing with sort of 3 up top, 2 number 10s, but they're not really number 10s because they have to play out wide as well. I think it was a little bit of a downer to play Scott Twine out wide, basically, and I think it did him a disservice, but I'd keep him. Same with you, Hirakawa. I don't think we've seen the best of you yet. He's definitely, I think, gotten a little bit better physically in his time at City so far. I'd definitely give him another season just to see how things play out for him. No, he's already got his sort of chance, hasn't he? And he's a bit of a fan favourite. I don't think I need to say much more about you. Cam Pring has just signed a new contract. I've just realised I don't have George Tanner in here. So there's Rob Dickey's in here twice, right? So imagine this second instantiation of Rob Dickey as George Tanner, right? But anyway, Cam Pring, I said when I talked about McCrory and Sinclair, didn't I, that I think he's probably one of our most like athletic players we've got. And I would say defensively he's pretty good. Athletically he's pretty good. Almost of Premier League levels of athleticism, I'd say. But going forwards, he's not quite good enough. And I don't actually think it's that he's not good enough. I think it's that he doesn't have the confidence in himself to attack more often than he does. I don't know if it was managerial instructions that put him in that way, but I just wish he had a little bit more confidence to take players on and really go for it from an attacking perspective a little bit more. Particularly when you play at wing back, right? 3 at the back system, your wing backs become like one of your probably the most important positions in that system, and they have to be good at attacking and they have to be good at defending. I think Pring has attacking in him, he just doesn't show it enough, but you'd obviously keep him, right? Mehmeti, did he finish the season as our top scorer? I think he probably did. This guy is, I think, to see the journey that he's gone on in his career, you just have to respect it. Like, I saw a tweet, I think it was this time last year, of Anis Mehmeti playing for a team in like the non-leagues against #United. And then like 2 or 3 seasons later, he's obviously at Wycombe and then played for Bristol City. The journey that this guy has gone on to make it into professional football has to be absolutely commended. And I do like him as a player. However, he does frustrate me. His decision making in the final third is a bit lacking. I think he's been with the club now long enough where that should have improved. And at times I think he's shown that it has improved, but I don't think it's improved enough in my mind. And I think one thing I would make a general comment about wingers, right, and particularly a player like Anis Mehmeti, his footwork is incredible, right? His technical ability with the ball is really good. But he doesn't have the raw, and I use the term athleticism a lot. It sounds like I'm a FIFA like pace merchant or whatever. I'm not. I think it's really important as a winger to have like that raw sprint and acceleration speed. Like there are a number of wingers in the Premier League, right, and the Championship as well. We saw the likes of, well, he's not a winger, but Mayenda, and people that just have a physical capability to beat a man using outright acceleration and speed. And Mehmeti just doesn't have that. He doesn't have like that outright acceleration, so he relies on his technical ability. And then when he does actually beat a player, he doesn't have the raw sprint speed to actually stay ahead of them. That's something I've noticed. For example, if you're like, I don't know, 40 yards away from goal, just past the halfway line, one-on-one with the defender, which we see quite a lot, or even on a counter-attack, for example, he gets the ball and runs with it. He just doesn't have the pace to stay ahead of the defence. That almost sounds like a very FIFA video game sort of opinion, but it's true. I've seen it multiple times. And whilst you can coach the final third decision making, etc., I don't think you can coach that like raw athleticism. I just don't think it's possible. I think it's more of a genetic thing. So I like Mehmeti, but I don't. If we were told that Mehmeti was sold for $2.5 million to another Championship team or went abroad or whatever, would you in reality be that upset? You'd be upset that when he signed, we were really excited about him, etc., and it just didn't quite work out. I don't think you'd be upset at the prospect of selling him, though. Let me know what you think of that in the comments. We're getting towards the end now, aren't we? Maguire, really like him as a player. His technical ability on the ball is absolutely fantastic. And, well, he was at the Barcelona Academy, wasn't he? There's the famous picture of him with Messi. Yeah, I really like Maguire. I think he was a really good signing from Manning. Proved his worth multiple times this season. I don't actually think we saw him in the starting 11 as much as I think he deserved to be in there, to be honest. Yeah, I really like Marcus Maguire. I think he's a fantastic player, and it's great to have him at Bristol City, basically. Max Bird, again, I would keep him, no question about it. I just think, again, Manning was sort of playing him in an incorrect position. I don't think he was one of those, like, inside number 10s behind the striker. I just don't think that's his position. If I were to say what's Max Bird's favourite position, I would say it's on the right-hand side of a midfield 3, next to another player, Jason Knight, for example, on the sort of other central midfield position, and then a holding midfielder behind him. I think that's Max Bird's best position. But the system we played under Manning didn't quite fit it. But there's no question he's technically great on the ball. I'm really happy with him as a player. I just hope that next season or under the new manager that we get, we can actually use him properly. Mark Sykes, again, I'd obviously keep him. I think there are a couple of reasons why we didn't get to the playoff final. One of them being the fact that Rob Dickie got sent off and we had 10 men and only Zach Viner fit for the second leg. And another one being we didn't have Sykes from an attacking perspective. I think when Sykes is in the team, he offers so much from an attacking perspective. I spoke about athleticism earlier. I don't think he has like top tier athleticism, but what he doesn't lack is confidence to take a player on and then like a little bit of pace to run in behind when we need it as well. I really like Mark Sykes, and I think when you think of those wide players, he's probably our best winger in the squad at the moment. Got Rob Dickie again. This is George Tanner. I think I'd probably keep George Tanner. But would I start him every week? Probably not. I think McCrory is a better attacking fullback than he is. I'm a little bit concerned about McCrory's defending, though, but it's funny looking at Dickie and pretending it's Tanner. I like Tanner. I think he's good defensively. Doesn't really offer enough going forwards, but at the same time, I'd probably want to keep him around the place to be a squad player. Luke McNally, I keep him as well. I think alongside Dickie, these two are our two best centre-backs. I don't really need to say a whole lot more about that. Again, disappointing to see him pick up the injury that he did. I hope he's fit and ready to go for at least pre-season or the start of next year. He's got, I'd say, he doesn't necessarily have the raw pace, but he's certainly got the strength and power to handle most championship forwards. He's a big dude. I really like him as a player, and I'd be happy to see him in the starting 11 next season. I think if we play 4 at the back, my back 2 would be Dickey and I've forgotten his name now. I've so many names to go through. I've forgotten him. Dickey and McNally. I'd have those 2 as my 2 centre-backs. Finally, we'll talk about the other 2 players in a second. I'm a little bit indifferent about those 2, as you could probably guess. Nahki Wells. I'd probably put Nahki Wells in the don't mind category, right? I think he'd be great to have around the dressing room with the experience he's got. You know, he's a real leader. And when you look at our squad, it's a pretty damn young squad, right? And Nahki Wells is the number 1 most experienced player in that squad, right? So I think there's value in keeping him for that experience alone. But, I go back to the point I made about Zach Viner and Max O'Leary. Are you going to get promoted? Are you going to hit the playoffs next season again if you're starting Nahki Wells as our number 9 week in, week out? I don't mean that as a disrespect to Nahki Wells. You know, I really appreciate what he's done for this club, how well he played for us towards the back end of the season as well. Probably as well, but we don't see what he offers around the training ground and in the dressing room, etc. But yeah, I just don't mind if we keep or sell him, I guess. If we sold him, I'd want to see us bring in some experience to replace that. And also, obviously, a number 9 that has goals in them as well. But I'd be a little bit indifferent. I'd be sad to see him go, but I'd understand the decision if we got rid of him. Got those 2 players there, but I'm completely indifferent to what we do with those 2 at the time being. So I'm probably I'll just crack them in there. I don't think they need much time or attention at the moment. No disrespect. So yeah, that's my tier list, really. Let me know in the comments what you think of that. I've always wanted to make this video about Bristol City. We're closing in on, 27 minutes, but yeah, hopefully that gives you a good view of my opinions. I'll leave a link, like I said, in the description to the tier list yourself. All the player pictures are in there. You can have a go and play around with this yourself. Yeah, that'll do. All right, well, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. If you did, please leave a like rating on the video. You can subscribe to the Robin's Nest YouTube channel. Actually, it should be just here on your screen, but it's also down below. And yeah, let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with any of my thoughts there. I have said I'd keep quite a lot of players. I'm just looking at the list back, but I probably would keep these players, to be honest. The more I look at that tier list, the more I think that's pretty much fair enough. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with any of those views. I'll catch you in my next video.